Hello, so in today's video I'm going to be talking about Old Country, and this is written by two authors, Matt Quarry and Harrison Quarry. I believe they are brothers, and yes, it says your first home can be a nightmare. So I actually bought this book for my dad for his birthday, and I remember reading the blurb and I was like, oh, my dad is probably going to like this. And then he read it and he told me a little bit about it, and I was like, can I borrow it back just so I can read it? So obviously he said yes. So I borrowed this off my dad, and it was a very interesting book. It says here on the back that it's a thriller. I wouldn't class this as a thriller though. I would class this as more of like American folk, like it says here from the Daily Mail, has described it as an American folk horror. That's definitely a more accurate description of this book. So it's set around this couple, and this couple, they are looking for a first time home. They don't have a lot of money though, so they're looking for a bargain, and this really big old like farmhouse with a lot of land pops up, and they quickly snap it up. They're really pleased to get this house, but then when they get to this house, it's kind of not all as it cracks up to be. Well, the house is beautiful, the house and the land is perfect, it's exactly where they want to live, it's exactly as they imagined, but then they get a visit from their neighbours who live quite far from them. You know, it's quite a spread out old country, like old country land where the houses are set very far apart and there's not many neighbours. They live quite far from civilization. But yeah, their neighbours come and they start to creep them out a little bit. They start telling them creepy, or what they deem to be creepy stories about the land and about these rituals that happen each season, and rituals that they may have to partake in order to basically survive living in this house. And of course they just think they're crazy and they send them away. They're like, this is total rubbish, send them off, talking about some kind of seasonal spirit that's gonna, you know, come after us. Send them away, and then of course as the seasons start changing, certain things happen. What the neighbours have described to them is starting to happen to them, and of course they get freaked out and they end up getting roped into the whole thing. And at the beginning of the story you're like, okay, is this going to be a story about crazy neighbours, or is this genuinely going to be some kind of haunting on the land? Because basically what the neighbours say is the land is haunted by a spirit, and they call it a seasonal spirit. So obviously, you know, summer, autumn, spring, all the seasons that pass, different things will happen within the land, and they have to perform different rituals or routines each season in order to be safe when this spirit shows up on their property. And when it starts happening, the first one is like, okay, that's kind of creepy, but then as the seasons gear up towards winter, it kind of gets a little bit more and more crazy, and the stuff they have to do is like, okay, do we actually want this house? Is this worth it? Like, is the house and the land worth what they have to do to live there? Because it's a lot, and I will say it's a little bit slow going. I did have some issues with this book. I love the premise of this book. I think it's a fantastic idea. Like, reading through this book, you can imagine it, like this would be a really good horror film. Like, the amount of creepiness and the craziness they have to do in this, it would just make such a fantastic horror film. But as a book, I felt like it was lacking in a few parts. Definitely the character development. So the main characters, like I said, is a husband and a wife, and the husband is like ex-army, ex-military, and the beginning of the book starts off about him talking about his military life. So you get kind of a feel for him and his personality. He's a fiery guy, he's very quick to anger, like he absolutely loves his wife, but he's also very like overly protective. He can be, like I said, quick to anger, whereas she seems a bit more laid back and a bit more placid. The wife doesn't really have a whole lot of character development throughout this book, if I'm honest. To be fair, if it was just the guy there on his own, you could probably have the same sort of story. She didn't really add much to the story. So yeah, in terms of characters, if you're somebody who really enjoys character driven plots and character development and lots of getting to know the character, their thoughts, their feelings, and you want there to be some kind of development for this character throughout the book, this might not be the book for you. It's definitely more plot driven. It's definitely driven by this seasonal spirit and the idea of the book is split into the different seasons. And see, yeah, so like this is summertime, so the book is split into the different seasons, and that's what kept me going. I wanted to know what ritual they were going to have to perform throughout each season, because one of them is just like, I couldn't do it. Like, I don't think I can do it. Like, some of the stuff they have to do in this book, like one of them, I think, is it the summer one? I think it is the summer one, is just so crazy. You're just like, wow, okay. But yeah, if you really like folk tales, stuff surrounding, like, I guess kind of like legend kind of books involving some horror, then you would like this. But yeah, I think overall I would probably give it a 3 out of 5. It wouldn't be a 5 just because, like I said, even though I don't have to have amazing characters in books to enjoy the story, I can just enjoy a story for a plot. I feel like that was lacking a little bit. And also I felt like there was a lot of build up, and then the ending could have been more. Like, there could have been more of a message to this story. I feel like it just ended very much like the last season happened, so winter happened, and then it concludes very quickly and just all wraps up, and you're like, oh, okay, that's just kind of the end of the story. I felt like it was a little bit, the pacing was a little bit off. It was like dragging, and then the middle bit was good as it was getting into more of what they were going to have to endure to live there, and then it just kind of like trailed off at the ending. I would have liked, again, there could have been such a good opportunity for character development within this book as well. Maybe that's why I bring that up, because I feel like people, like I said, who enjoy character development might get a little bit frustrated by this. But yeah, overall I'm very glad I read it. It was very, very interesting, very bizarre. Like I said, I really liked the premise. I just feel like the execution of the story wasn't quite there. But yeah, definitely would make a fantastic film. It would make a really crazy horror film if they ever decide to make this. But yeah, it says like psychological insight and profound feelings of the natural world, which, yeah, it did give you feels of like living in the country, you know, how nice it can be, but also there can be, well, hopefully not horrors like this in the real world, but you never know. But yeah, it was good. It was creepy. But yeah, I think that's pretty much all I have to say. So let me know, have you heard of this book? I've not seen this book around. I picked it up from the works for my dad, and like I said, I just saw it's like, oh, American folk horror. I was like, that sounds interesting, because I read a lot of like folk legends around the British Isles, but nothing like American kind of horror, like folk horror. I thought it'd be really interesting, and it was definitely a really interesting, yeah, like I said, interesting premise. It says the ranch, our dream home, nestled in the arms of a valley below the mountains, acres upon acres of wilderness, their nearest neighbours over a mile away, beautiful, serene, isolated, perfect until the only neighbours from miles deliver a dire message. The valley is cursed. Every season a spirit will manifest itself in increasingly disturbing ways, starting with an eerie light in a pond, and will kill you if you don't light a fire. And then there's a little line. We make them leave then, put it into the back of our minds, and went about living their new, nearly perfect lives. Then spring came, and so did the light. So yeah, like I said, with each season, the spirit manifests itself in different ways, and you have to do very specific things. Like I said, like a ritual, like a routine ritual, where you have to basically follow the rules of this spirit in order to live in this ranch. But yeah, the things you have to do are quite out there. Not fun things, not fun times. So yeah, it was an interesting one, definitely interesting. Let me know, would you give it a go? Have you heard of this story? Yeah, like I said, I think for me it just wasn't up there as a 4 or 5 star, because it was just lacking in a few things, but definitely an interesting one. So yeah, let me know your thoughts. So I'm going to stop rambling, and that's the end of my review. So as always, thank you for watching, and until next time, bye guys.